Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Maple Blooded podcast. A guy named Mark Carney, who has been getting the Make-A-Wish treatment as the Prime Minister of Canada for the past week, called an election yesterday. He dissolved Parliament. We're going to an election on April 28th, which is the shortest period of an election possible, 37 days according to the Elections Act. Why is he doing this? It's obvious. Parliament was set to resume today, March 24th. He would have had to face Parliament for the first time. The Governor General Mary Simon would have had to deliver the throne speech in English and in French. And we all know Parliament would have voted non-confidence in the government, and the government would have fallen. Now, I'm not a political insider, obviously, but what makes sense to me, if I was a Liberal, I would want to get Mark Carney to Election Day as quickly as possible, before Canadians figured out exactly who Mark Carney is. Because the resume of Mark Carney is what is impressive about him. His physical appearance, his general attitude toward the peasants, and his lack of accomplishments will become very apparent over a 50 or 60 day election cycle. Now remember, this is a man who bragged about going to Harvard on a hockey scholarship. And as you've seen recently, he was on the ice with the Edmonton Oilers during their practice, and he completely missed a wide open net. The more Mark Carney is in public attempting to display feats of physical prowess, the more embarrassing it's going to become. He's a very elderly 60-year-old man, and he's a construct. I posted on X the other day that I finally had Mark Carney pegged. Mark Carney has the dental work, the pallor, and the taste for human blood of Nosferatu. He has the posture, greed, and muscle mass of Montgomery Burns. He has the education, pompous naivete, and invisible wife of Niles Crane. And he has the weaselly, antagonistic, and petty personality of Eric Gordon. And if you don't know who that character is, he's from Billy Madison. Now, of course, everyone's worried about the polling. Polling shows that the race has tightened. Mark Carney and the Liberals have pulled ahead of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. And everyone was worried about how that was going to play out with a campaign. Now, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of polls that are going to tighten and are going to fluctuate now that the election campaign has started. The Liberals are no longer able to dominate the news cycle. Now that an election has been called, it's a completely different story. This is a reset, and you'll see over the next 37 days how this is going to play out. And speaking of the campaign start, Mark Carney did not have a good kickoff to his election campaign. While he was in St. John's, Newfoundland, approximately 50 fishermen protested outside of his campaign event. The police that were there had to lock the doors to prevent them from entering. They were there to protest tariffs that China had put on imports from Canada related to fisheries. You won't hear very much from Mark Carney about Chinese tariffs. China has already put 100% tariffs on imports of canola from Saskatchewan. Premier Scott Moe has been very vocal about what that's going to do to jobs and the industry in Saskatchewan. Mark Carney chooses to make this election entirely about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian imports. Mark Carney also doesn't seem to have any of his own policy ideas. He's copied several from Pierre Poilievre already, and if you have been paying attention to politics for over 2 years, the Liberals have been calling Pierre Poilievre No Plan Pierre. They've been demanding that he release a platform, which he was reluctant to do, and you can see why he was reluctant to do it. Because the Liberals have completely adopted Pierre Poilievre's platform so far, with minor tweaks here and there, but they're still relatively the same thing. Cut the GST on new homes up to $1 million, axe the carbon tax, and we all know the trick that Mark Carney has pulled with reducing the carbon tax, but not eliminating the carbon tax law entirely, because he's unable to do that, because that requires a vote in Parliament. It's even funny that Mark Carney followed Pierre Poilievre to none of it, to announce defense spending. While Pierre Poilievre announced that they would build a military base in the Arctic, Mark Carney just made an announcement that he was building a new radar system, but that radar system was already approved and that spending has already been approved. None of it wasn't even a territory when Mark Carney left Canada in the 80s to pursue an international career in other countries. When Mark Carney returned to Canada, none of it was a place. And that is the other interesting thing about Mark Carney. Mark Carney made his campaign for Liberal leadership announcement in Edmonton. And Mark Carney has told everyone that he's from the Northwest Territories. So why is Mark Carney running in Nepean, Ontario, which is a riding near Ottawa? It's obvious why that is. Mark Carney is not confident that he would win a seat in Edmonton. And Strong Eagle Man's riding in Edmonton is wide open. I would imagine that Mark Carney's publicity stunt with the Edmonton Oilers did not pull well internally. I think that he wanted to run in that Edmonton seat, and he wanted to win that seat to show Danielle Smith and conservative Albertans that he was the guy. But instead what happened, right after that Edmonton Oilers event, Chandra Arya, the Liberal MP in Nepean, was told by the Liberal Party that he would not be the candidate going into the next election. And then a day later, it was announced that Mark Carney was the candidate for that riding. What's interesting is the Halifax riding is wide open. Justin Trudeau called a by-election for that seat, which has been vacant for several months. And that is considered a stronghold, a Liberal stronghold. Now, why would Mark Carney not run in a Liberal stronghold like that? What I believe is happening is Mark Carney is the Prime Minister or bust. He is not the kind of guy that would want to sit in the opposition. It is entirely possible that Mark Carney could win the election to be the Member of Parliament representing Halifax. But at the same time, the Conservatives could win the general election and form the government. Mark Carney either wants to win the election entirely, or he wants to leave Canada. He is not here for us. He will tell the media that he's here because Canada is in crisis. Canada is in a crisis because of Mark Carney's... Canada is in a crisis because of Mark Carney's shoddy economic advice to the Trudeau government. Canadian history did not begin on January 6, 2025, when Justin Trudeau resigned and called a Liberal leadership race, as well as prorogue in Parliament. The Liberals are going to try and convince Canadian voters all of the financial pain that they have caused with their policies over the past 10 years started with the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs. And that is the reason why I'm so confident that the Conservatives will win the general election. The lies are unsustainable, and you can see they're already being picked apart. Mark Carney can't take the slightest criticism. He's not used to it. And although this is going to be a short campaign, the scrutiny is going to chip away at him, and the veneer is going to wear off, and it is going to expose the bald spot. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. Please let me know in the comments what you would like to hear. I would love to answer some questions. Go ahead and ask away. I just would like to give a shout out to my 20 subscribers. Before I posted any content, you guys already had faith in me, and I hope this is what you expected. I can only improve from here. These are humble beginnings. Let's see where this goes. Let's stay the course, and I'll talk to you guys later.